Now, One Piece. This chapter, plain and simple, was had a lot of interesting points, but it was very simple. I mean, unfortunately, he as we were all hoping, he didn't break out a friggin' Geppo. Nope.
No.
He just had some guy throw him. Which, when you think about it, the only reason why. Well, I mean, hold on. I'll talk about that part later. Which was interesting, and the fact is that that cut, the first, just being able to sit there and admire the first cut he made, where he cut his the upper body of the statue, detached it from the bottom half. That was just was an amazing sight to see.
Yep.
But if you were to just without even, when you sit there and you look at it, you're like, without even before, when you first read it, you're like, why did he cut it like that? Like, what the hell is your problem? You're not going to get him by doing that. But then, of course, as you know, Zoro had a plan. For once, Zoro had a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Or shall we say, what was it? Strategy E or something? Or what was it? What was the name of the chapter again? That was execute.
The name of the chapter?
Yeah, it was tactic number 5.
Oh, yeah, he called it Plan E in the previous chapter.
And then this chapter, they decided to call it Tactic 5.
Okay.
I guess that's one way to go about it. But anyway, and lo and behold, the reason why he cut it the way he did was to isolate Pika in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he kept cutting the pieces and kept the piece of that Pika was in the air, he could prevent Pika from escaping. What you think that Zoro should have thought of this 50 chapters ago. But no, he wasn't allowed to think about that until now.
Right.
Now, but before Pika gets cut up, he's given this whole, you have the plateau is in, it's all the people on the plateau are freaking out, trying to run for their lives because Pika's about to destroy them. And as Usopp points out, Pika's one hand is the size of an entire city. Now, that could be exaggerated, but
it is.
Maybe not. It has to be, because if Pika's one hand is the size of a city, that would be insane. That would mean Pika would have to be what? Friggin' half the size of New Jersey?
Yeah.
No. There's no way.
No, Pika's a little over mountain size, I would say. As far as it looks. Maybe a bit more. Maybe a higher level of mountain. Which is still ridiculous for One Piece.
Which means his hand would probably be more like a small village. Or
yeah, I'm looking at a couple of these pictures. His hand's about as wide or as big as a couple blocks, maybe a block or two of buildings.
I would probably say maybe I would think maybe 10 to 15 blocks maybe. It's a pretty big hand.
I'm looking at, there's actually a picture, the picture where Viola looks like she wants Zoro's D. That giant picture, after he cuts him in half, there's a picture of his hand, and you could see buildings below it. From the perspective, you could scale a little bit, but definitely not city. Not even close.
That would be too OP.
It's before he comes out in full body armament hockey, which was sick, by the way.
Well, we have to get there. Of course, it's also worth to note that before Zoro goes to fly in the air, once again, Elizabeth is like, is it time to use the punch? Nope, not yet. And so you have him, and then as everyone's trying to run away, King Riku's decides that he's going to stay there because, Pika's after him, and it would be pointless for him to run because then he'd just chase him again.
Mm-hmm.
So Pika gives him this whole speech about how, you failed because you can't defend your kingdom, you're weak, and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and then he gets cut several times, and then first he gets cut. He separates the upper half from the bottom half. Then he cuts the upper half in half, and then he sees that he's in the one side, and then he cuts the arm off, and then the arm still moves. So he decides to then cut the arm like it's a friggin' carrot.
Yep.
That's the best way to describe it.
That's definitely the best way to describe it, is like a carrot.
And then you have the whole thing and then he decides, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to come out in full body armored hockey. Because you know what? You might be able to cut my stones, but you can't cut this. Or cuts it. And this is something that is definitely what makes it interesting, because this provides us with an interesting moment, because Zoro in this chapter decides to have this whole thing that he said several times about how of the 9 mountains and 8 seas or something.
Uh-huh.
There's nothing I can't cut. And now, there were some people out there saying that this might be like him taking a page out of Sogi King's book, and that when it gets animated, there might be like music to it or something, like a friggin' Sogi King song. I'm like, no. Zoro's not like that. However, that is an awesome saying, though. Because I remember there was one person who kept laughing at the thought of him practicing a quote-unquote, battle song with Mihawk. Does this sound good? Of the 9 mountains and 8 seas, there is nothing I can't cut.
Yep.
I mean, the thought is funny, but no. And if I'm mistaken, and I might, this is the first time we get to see Zoro use armament hockey to such a degree that his swords become black.
It is the first time. And it's about damn time.
So yes. It is awesome looking.
Yeah. The only other time he really used hockey, in terms of armament hockey, was when he attacked what's her name? Monet with the one small slash that cut her face.
Yeah, because as we all know, he ended that fight by just slashing her with such great force that that it basically scared her senseless.
Yeah.
I remember reading that chapter, and I remember watching the episode where they put it in. That both ways it looked very uncomfortable. It was awesome, but just the sight of her just trying to get reformed but just can't because of terror was just a little much.
Yeah.
Damn. But anyway, now we have the last. Zoro is finally done. He's finally defeated Pika once and for all. But before the chapter ends. Reality kicks in. Yay, Zoro just saved us from Pika, but his entire body's still gonna fall on everybody. And this is the part of the chapter that kind of annoys me. He wastes the King Punch on cleanup duty. Like, you're telling me Sabo couldn't have come in there and just dragon breathed it all away? And then save the King Punch to do something else?
I don't know. The only thing like left is like destroy the factory or something, but we could still have Frankie and his laser beam like destroy the factory.
He's knocked out. He's out. He's out cold.
For now.
Yeah, but he's not going to get back up until he gets healed by Mancherry.
Which could be like any minute.
Mancherry's... No one knows how far they've gotten.
I know. Could be any minute.
But that any minute could be like 2 chapters or it could be 10 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Oda may employ Frieza time.
Yep.
Anyway, despite all of that, nothing in the... I am happy, and it's annoying. See, I'm glad because there was nothing, at least nothing in this week's chapter that said that they were going to be on break next week.
Mm-hmm.
Which means there's going to be a chapter next week. So I'm very happy because that means next week we're going to get the first chapter. They're probably going to get rid of it. Because that means next week we're probably going to have Luffy versus Bellamy finishing. Because, because of the fact that Oda gave him a fighting chance against Luffy just by the sheer fact that Luffy won't hit him back, tells you that there's going to be an entire chapter dedicated to him finally being put out for the rest of the chapter.
Yeah.
And it's going to piss me off, but I'm glad because that means that we're going to get that done and over with. Then Oda's going to take his week break, and then he's going to come back fresh, renewed, and writing the Law and Luffy versus Trable and Doflamingo.
Mm-hmm.
We're almost there, people. We're almost there.
Yeah, just get Bellamy out of the way, and then we're set.
I still think, Trables and Law are going to finish their fight before at least a couple of chapters before Doflamingo's beat by Luffy.
Well, yeah, Trable will be out long before Doflamingo will.
And now, of course, there's also the possibility that because Law's missing an arm, he might be so injured to the point where Luffy's going to have to take on both Trable and Doflamingo at once, just to show how beastly he's become.
Well, Trable's also pretty hurt because of Radio Knife.
Yep. Which means... Now, of course, that brings the question about what's Luffy going to do to defeat Doflamingo? And a lot of people are trying to speculate that maybe he's going to come up with some Gear 4th stuff or full body armament hockey or something like that. Honestly, they've already showcased what he's going to do. What series of maneuvers he's going to do to beat Doflamingo. Red Hawk. And I say this because the 3D2Y special heavily emphasized, like the main, other than the purpose of Luffy other than Luffy getting another fight against another villain, it showcased him learning to use the Red Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
Which put great importance on it. And as we saw in the Coliseum, he can do a Red Hawk rifle, which means he can apply the Red Hawk to other maneuvers, just like Sanji can do with his Diablo Jambol technique.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't just do a kick; he can do different variations of it.
Right.
Which means that Luffy is going to beat Doflamingo with a Red Hawk type technique. Maybe do a regular Red Hawk, maybe throw in some Red Hawk rifles, and maybe finish it off with Red Hawk Gatling, maybe,
Storm.
or Red Hawk Storm, Red Hawk Bazooka,
Fireworks.
Fireworks, maybe a freaking Gigante oh my god, a Gigante Red Hawk. Just gear second. Armament Hockey. Hardening. No. First he would do this gear second. Then he would do activate gear third. Then he'd Armament Hockey up. Then he'd be like, Como Gigante Red Hawk. That'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Just but yeah. So this was a pretty good I would say it was a very good chapter.
Yeah, I would. For the fact that Zoro, the People's Champ, has finally given us our wish.
Oh, yeah. We all know. Zoro, the People's Champ, blah, blah, blah. We all know. Yes. But you know what's going to be people are more interested in? What the frig Sanji's been up to this whole time.
Yeah, obviously, but Zoro's
here now.
Takes the chapter, as always. Zoro is the shit, and will always be the shit. And yeah, great chapter.
Unless Sanji's there.
In which case he outshines Sanji.
No, he does not. Sanji's better.
Nah.
He's a better character.
No.
Yes, he is.
Sanji is... He's on the decline. No, I'm just kidding. He was until this arc.
Anyway, let's move on before we start an argument. If we actually had viewers, I would say we might have started a flame war in our comments, but
yeah, because it's always Zoro versus Sanji is always the big thing among One Piece fans. So